All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Behind the Human. I'm your host, Mark Champagne. It's my job to unpack the stories and mental fitness practices of people living at the top of their game personally and professionally. Today, we've got a real awesome human on the show. We've got Chef Dev, who is a dynamic culinary personality with a masterful balance of skill, passion, and energy that captivates television audiences, food enthusiasts, and clients. He openly speaks and shares his sobriety journey along with how mental health plays a huge role in his daily life. His debut cookbook, which I'm holding in my hands, beautiful piece of art, Mad Love, Big Flavors Made to Share from South Asia to West Indies, is now out. Chef Dev, welcome to the show, brother. Who are you?
It's a really good question. And honestly, bro, like a few years ago, I don't know that I would have known how to answer it. And I'm sure we're going to get into the spiritual journey that I've been on and all that as we go on. But I'm just very curious and I'm very ambitious. And these days, I try to give everybody a 100% authentic view of who I truly am. Because for a long time I wore a mask, right? For a long time I tried to convince people that I had my shit together. I tried to convince people to like me and impress, and it took away from Devan and my character. You know, like a very interesting thing too is like you talk about us jamming before the show and the high energy, and you might be sensing some energy now, anybody watching or listening. But I think sometimes I'm a bit of like an introvert.
Okay.
You know, like yeah, man, I can get right awkward in social situations, and anybody that knows me would think that I'm crazy. But there's a few people out there in my circle, in my close circle, that actually are like, I think you're a little bit introverted, man. You know,
Interesting.
and yeah, it's super interesting. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is every day that goes by, I'm still seeking and I'm still looking inward to find out who Devan actually is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, it's a daily practice, man. I'm obsessed with food. I always have been obsessed with food since I was a little kid. It's only later in my life that I discovered that I could follow my passion, which is everything to do with food. A big part of my life is not just about cooking food and eating food, but it's about serving food to other people. I have this tattoo, like in this sleeve. It's got some Sanskrit here, and it says Seva, and Seva is selfless service without praise
Oh,
recognition, and it's to do for others. And that's one of the reasons why I love the field that I'm in so much, is that I get to nurture and nourish other people and make a living out of it, right? I have
yeah.
a career from it as well. So, you know, I was doing business and all these different courses in university and high school and stuff like that. And when I finally got into culinary school, everything changed and it gave me great purpose in life. Because I feel like the purpose in life, what makes sense to me is to look after your neighbor. And I can do that with different things that I do in my life, whether that's DJing and playing music or you know, making someone laugh or being there to listen to someone. But a big part of it is cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing down look after your neighbor because I want to come back to that because I feel like to look after your neighbor in the truest form, we have to look after ourselves first, which
100.
I know you've spent a lot of energy and effort doing that. But before we get there, I mean, there's a question that actually was kind of surfacing as I was doing the research and just came back to me when you said, you know, the comment around being somewhat of an introvert, because I found it interesting, like when you in the research, just seeing, you know, obviously the masks that were up and so forth and whatnot, but you've kind of gone down a road that is very public. Like you're not just cooking, you're cooking in front of a whole bunch of people on television, you're doing TV shows, you're very public in the sense of like your social profiles. So like how did that all start in the sense of, because it started when you know you were having a hard time, like you were going through grief, you had substance
Mhm.
abuse challenges and things like
Mhm.
that. Like how did all that stuff come together?
It's a really good question. And I graduated from culinary school in 2010. And when I graduated from culinary school, sorry, even while I was in culinary school, I wanted to get in front of people and cook. It's something that really appealed to me. Emeril Lagasse
Oh
is
yeah.
chef.
Bam.
Yeah, man, picking up a notch and oh yeah, babe, and all that stuff. I actually waited 4 hours as a kid at the Indigo local bookstore in Richmond Hill in Canada here to get his autograph. I was just so drawn to, and I wanted to be like him. I wanted to like captivate and engage crowds and make food exciting. Like
Mm,
who thought? I never really knew. Like I got so excited when, like you said, like he would yell "bam" as he's adding spices or garlic or thyme and or deglazing with cognac, or whatever it is. Like he made food and cooking so exciting, and I wanted to be like him. And he was a big inspiration to me. So as I'm in culinary school, I lied to Longo's. Longo's is a local grocery store here, right? So I
okay.
lied to them and I told them that I was a chef and I had experience. So I go to culinary school during the day, and then at night, different days of the week, I was going to 5 different locations to perform live culinary demonstrations for classrooms that were getting pretty full. They were getting,
Wow.
because you had this young kid, exotic looking, if that's one way to put it, doing these really fun recipes that I was learning from the food dudes and putting my tweaks on them, right? Like really
Yeah.
fun, exciting stuff that's out of the normal. Like I wasn't going in there and doing like risotto and stuffed baked chicken breast. I was doing like like really fun quesadillas and like just really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So that started me off in 2009, it being in front of
Okay.
people, and I got really attracted to it, and I wanted to get better and better and better at it. Fast forward a little bit, I'm with the Food Dudes, a massive empire for food in this in the city and beyond. And then I got to the Lux Appliance Studio in 2012, and that was a very high-end, multi-million dollar showroom. And my job as the executive chef there, a title which I did not deserve by any means. And I'll always say that because anyways, that's another part of the story.
Okay.
Ego and all that's another part of the story. But I was doing live demos almost every single day. So it really got me into this zone. And it really finessed me in terms of cooking, slicing, dicing in front of
Yeah.
people while
The
explaining.
performance of it.
That's it, man. And then 2014. So I from that job in 2012. Long story short, I ended up getting connected to Cityline because someone saw me doing a demo. Long story short, and then Cityline 10 years later, right?
Okay.
I have so much experience doing it, and I'm in a very comfortable place when I'm doing it. I feel like if you put me in front of a group of people and I need to talk about politics, or if I have to talk about like standard deviation and stats, or accounting, I may not fare that well. You know,
You and me
I can
both.
I can stand up in front of any number, and I've performed in front of like basically thousands of people. I mean, I can stand up in front of anybody and talk about food because it's just like it's where I feel safest. I feel real
Mm,
comfortable in that space. So I don't know really how it happened. I was just drawn to it, and yeah, I'm very public these days. I do like I always say that out of everything that I do, and I do everything but run a restaurant. Everything you name it, I do it outside of running a restaurant, and there's a reason for that. I say that the strongest thing that I do is live culinary demonstrations.
okay. And that must come full circle to the tattoo that you have in your arm around like selfless service, right? And getting like you strike me as you're like you said, you're adding subtle tweaks and adding in your personality and I guess pun intended, your flavor to the whole kind of performance and in food to give people a different experience and almost energize them in a way. Like I feel energized, just listening to this, right? I can only imagine what these demos look like. And of course I've seen some of the episodes of some of the shows that you've
Yeah.
done, which I'm recording. You're in the Toronto area. I'm in the Blue Mountains. I actually watched that episode that you did coming out this way and visiting different cider houses and cooking a meal and whatnot, which
Oh, LCBO
super
five
cool.
stops.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You're with
we were
another chef.
exploring.
Yeah,
Wow, Dustin Gallagher,
I
Dusty,
think so. He's got
Eric?
416 or something like that.
Yeah, Dusty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool show. We were exploring artisanal food and drink across Southern Ontario, and that was slated for a second season, and then boom, COVID.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then, okay. So let's just bring people up to speed and share whatever you'd like. But you're going through all of that journey. Even in the way you're describing it, it all sounds pretty damn amazing. But there's like some stuff going on in the background that you've done a lot of work personally, and on this show in my language, I would use there's a lot of mental fitness that you've been
Mm,
doing to get to the place where you're at and able to answer that who are you question from at least where you are today from a pretty authentic place, right? So like what was happening in the background personally that was, keeping those masks up, I guess you can say.
Um, the truth is this, man. So I grew up with a lot of insecurities, a lot of fears. I started to develop resentments at a young age. I felt kind of icky in my skin as a kid.
Hmm.
Right? And when I found substance at a very young age, I think I was 12, 13 years old, it removed all these insecurities for a short amount of time. I understand now, all these years later, that, that's a temporary band aid, that's not real, that really compounds all the problems and just really it's an opportunity to escape or numb myself, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up with a lot of these insecurities and stuff. So when I found substance, like it just kind of put a warm blanket around me, to be honest with you, right? And I learned to live my life as like a functioning addict, functioning alcoholic, whatever you want to call it. And one of the reasons why I wore so many masks is I was always trying to convince everybody um, on the outside that I was really all good on the inside
Mm.
when I was whether that was my mom or my dad or my bro or my school teachers or my best friends or anybody that I met on the street. I was always trying to convince people that I had it all together when really I was feeling a lot of pain on the inside, and I never chose to process that pain and emotion, those feelings. Although, like, I stunted my emotional intelligence at such a young age as well. And I just looked for any opportunity that I could to get out of that situation in my head.
Yeah.
Right. So I learned to live that way. And I'm a very, very hard worker, and I've always been that way. And I think one of those reasons was really just to prove to everybody that there was nothing going on inside me. So I
Okay.
learned to live this way for a very long time, and that's how I lived through my teens, into my 20s, and well into my 30s.
Okay. And what was the final straw? Like what caused the change to say, you know what, enough's enough?
Many bottoms, many
Okay.
rock bottoms, right? We have a saying, and I do a lot of 12 steps, right? And I was at a meeting,
Okay.
I'm speaking at a meeting tonight and stuff like that. And we have a saying that's a bit hard to hear for some people, but it's like sometimes you just need to go out and get beat up a bit more, right?
Yeah.
Because okay, Devin just said he had a rock bottom. Well, isn't that where everything turns around? I had multiple, and it's my conception of what a bottom is, right? No one.
Sure.
So I had multiple over many years. I hit a really big one in 2014, and that landed me in treatment, 3 weeks in Toronto, in-house treatment, right, where I learned a lot about 12 steps. I learned a lot about ego deflation and humility and self-love and negative self-talk and all these things. I had no idea. Resentments. I didn't know anything about this stuff before. So I learned a lot there. But to get to like the final big straw, it was pandemic, man. It was
Mm.
the in the pandemic. I started a series called Chef Dev at Home on Instagram. At the beginning, I was traveling, cooking around the world for 4 months. I came back in March of 2020, and I emerged out of nowhere with Chef Dev at Home, and it performed so well. And one of the reasons why is because of those demos in 2012 and all
Oh
along the way,
yeah.
and
You've
all
been
the seed
rehearsing for years
that's
essentially.
it. So when I started doing these things, people are like, "Who is this guy? Where did you come from?" And I mean, like, I've been in front of you. I've been on TV. Like, I've been out and about the whole time, right? But that's a whole other thing about people only seeing the output, not the input, kind of thing. A whole other podcast we can do on
Yeah.
that. But yeah, like I just started to get a little sidetracked with everything that was going on. Um, I started to make a lot of money. I come from a background where the bulk of my money was coming from catering,
Yeah.
pop-ups and stuff like that. I started to do brand partnership work because these videos were performing so well, and I started to earn a lot of money. I moved into a lush place downtown Toronto, and I was just partying my ass off. You know, I convinced myself that nothing really ever bothered me. And I know countless people around the world were struggling living in four walls, or like there was just so much uncertainty. It was eerie. Grocery stores
Hmm.
were deserted, like the roads were deserted. It was just weird, right? And I feel like it was troubling me on a deeper level. And I turned even more to drugs and alcohol to kind of soothe that anxiety or uneasiness that I was feeling.
Was
And
the uneasiness was it from feeling guilty in the sense that you were doing really well and to your point, like there was a lot of people struggling? Or was it just because at the beginning it sounded like you're kind of just celebrating, the fact that things were taken off. But there's obviously something behind that to get
The
to that
uneasiness
point.
came, the uneasy, yeah, the uneasiness came from everything. The
Okay.
guilt, the shame of it, not being able to handle how I felt on the inside, COVID, like all these different things, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you brought up something really important there is like my entire life. And one of the reasons why I worked so hard was because I developed a reward system for myself. So it's like, okay, I went and I executed this event. This catering went so well. Oh, I'm on a billboard now. Oh, I'm judging Food Network now. I can go out and get obliterated, or I can go out and disappear for 3 days, kind of thing. So that was also a big part of it as well. It was a reward system for me. But I got
Mm.
pushed to my brink in 2021, man. Like honestly, bro, like couple times I had to drive myself to the hospital. It got really, really bad. And I was just sick and tired, man, of being sick and tired. I was
Okay.
so beat. I knew from 2014 going to treatment that a solution existed if I put the work into it, but it's easier to continue using than it is to go and do all that work and that daily practice. And like, how am I not going to drink at that all you can drink wedding? And how am I going to hang out with my boys at the club? Like all that stuff's running through my head. It's just easier to keep staying in that shitty prison, right? But I eventually had enough
Yeah.
and turned to the spiritual program that had worked for people that I knew that were recovered, and I gave it 100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is just because I think it's been roughly 3 years, right, since you've
yeah,
been
yeah. May
sober.
10th was huge.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
If you because you've tried before, there's been, like you said, there's been rock bottoms, there's been other attempts and so forth. So I'm curious to know and let me set the context because I think, and I put myself in this bucket as well. There's substances is one thing, but there are a lot of habits and behaviors that we're all doing to numb out in some capacity because there's so much shit going on just in general in the world and life and a lot of fear out there. There's just no shortage of stress. So I feel, and so I just want to open up, for anyone listening. And like I said, I put myself in this camp as well. Whether you're struggling with substances or if you're like this used to happen to me, and I'm still working on this. But I remember getting to the end of the day, and it would be like I like a nice glass of scotch of some sort. I remember like
Mm.
I'm gonna celebrate the day, or I had a shitty day, and it's like I'm gonna have, and I didn't like that relationship, and it took a while to essentially start replacing that with San Pellegrino in some capacity and doing some hardcore journaling to unpack a little bit further. But I guess my question for you, Dev, is just around any tools that I know you've gone through some different programs and 12 steps and stuff like that, but what are some of the tools that have helped you like really move the needle and keep you on track?
There's a lot of tools, Mark. There's like I want to talk about like a spiritual toolbox that I've
Yeah.
created. But you actually mentioned the most important thing I feel before early on in our conversation is that to
Okay.
look after someone else, you have to look after yourself first. The only way I'm where I'm at today, and I'm not cured, I'm a one day at a time kind of guy. This is how I operate. You got to love yourself first. I thought I did, but I was punishing myself all the time. That's not self love, man. You know,
Mm,
like now self love for me is like being honest with myself, putting the right foot in front of the next, asking myself, if I go to this place, is it really healthy for me? Like, what can I do to help someone else today? Like, these are all the questions that run through my head, man. And I can sit here and I can talk the talk and I can and do this with you, but I truly feel that true change is demonstrated through actions and behaviors. And anybody that's close to me or anybody like you're following me, you'll see this in the work that I do because I'm living it and I'm breathing it. I'm trying to be as authentic as possible today. But it all starts with me loving myself and forgiving myself. This
mm,
is the important thing. I have
yeah.
to forgive myself and I have to love myself. I have to tell myself, Devin, you have a problem. Like I have a problem and I've tried to figure this out so many times on my own and I can't do it on my own. I need help. And that's the first step, I think, is to find this self love, admit you have a problem, and then go seek help for it.
Okay.
These days, my spiritual toolbox.
Yeah.
And
Tell me more about this.
yeah, so like through 12 steps, I've been on a spiritual journey. And for anybody listening, 12 steps is just a series of steps where the first step is admitting that, drugs and alcohol have rendered our life unmanageable and that we're powerless
Mm,
over it. And then we start to develop a relationship with God. And the
okay.
GOD word scares a lot of people, and it scared me. It's whatever your conception of a higher power is. And my higher
Yeah.
power, the ever expanding universe. And it works very well for me because I love studying astronomy and it
Yeah.
keeps me
It's
so tiny.
fascinating. Yeah.
It's like smaller than microdust, right? And that's what I need my ego smashed and I need to be leading with humility and be humble at every moment in my life, to be honest with you. So is what works for me. But you develop this conception of God, and it's really important that you do this. And I'll explain why. It's because and I'll explain from my journey always. It's
Yeah.
always, but it's like I thought I was the center of the universe. And I thought, hey, I got myself into this mess. I could get myself out. I was always wanting to be in control. I wanted to be the director. I always wanted to say this happened when Devin wants this, when he wants it now, and it didn't matter who got in my way or whatever. Like it was just always me being that authoritative figure. And I need to let go of that and put my faith into something else. Right.
How
So
did you do that, practically speaking? Was it
like
the
going
decision?
there's the big book in Big Books of Alcoholics Anonymous. The
Okay.
big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, I I went through it with my sponsor, and there's a lot of good stuff in there that helped me create that relationship.
Mm,
However, this can be done through meditation,
sure.
right? This can totally be done through meditation, taking a few minutes every day to get out of your head. But what was important for me is for someone to guide me through this process, someone that was armed with the facts and someone that recovered as a result of practicing and executing those 12 steps. This is not the only way to recover. There's smart recovery. There's people that have recovered just by going cold turkey. There's medicine and different things and spiritual retreats and all kinds of stuff that you can do. But this is my story. And that's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
knew in 2014 that people were recovering as a result of taking 12 steps. So when I went back to treatment in 21, I knew that it was an option. And I decided to give it 100%, like I mentioned before. But that spiritual toolbox, yeah, it contains things for me like the fellowship, like my mates I was with last night, like
Okay.
the group of people. Like we're not alone. We're all together. Like I can call them at any time. They're there for me
Yeah.
and things like that. Boys and girls, men and women rather. You know, sometimes I still think of myself as a kid, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's in there. My sponsor's in there. The big book's in there. Meditation and praying is in there. Like squash. I play tons of sports. I'm very fit
Mm,
in the gym. That's a huge part of my recovery is
yeah.
exercise. And I told you before this thing started, like as soon as we're done, I'm going straight to the gym. I try not to miss a day kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try to take that energy that I had before and like securing dope and put it into the good stuff in my life. So that toolbox is full of all the things that when I'm traveling, because I'm traveling year round, that when I'm traveling and I end up at a bar and someone slides a shot in front of me, I can take a second and go into that toolbox and pull out
Mm,
that will get me out of that situation.
that
Or,
micro
or
pause, right?
yeah, yeah. Or when I get rear-ended or I rear ends, I don't know. Like if something I get fired, I don't know. I mean, I work for myself. So like anything bad, I get dumped, I get rejected,
Yeah.
anything that happens in my life where it's just like I want to disappear, I don't want to feel nothing, I want to go numb. I can take a second, stop, and go into that toolbox and pull up my sponsor's number or pull out a workout, or pull out 5 minutes of breath work. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that toolbox. And I
So
mean, it's
powerful.
changing, and yeah, and it's not like the specific things, but like I hope everyone listening has an idea of what that looks like. It's not an actual toolbox, but that's the analogy that we use, or I use.
Yeah. Yeah. No, same. You're speaking this. I mean, I work with a lot of corporate teams in helping individuals develop that mental fitness toolkit or toolbox, which essentially is almost the same thing or definitely overlapped. And it's just to figure out for us, I don't know, what are 5 or 10 practices or rituals or things that if you do these things, you're going to put your mind in a good state, right? Obviously, exercise for me, breath work as well, journaling, getting outside. I mean, there's overlaps, but I think it's so important that we individualize these things because
Right.
you can go and part of this interview is to give people ideas, but I don't think the recipes always work, right? Like get up at 5 and, jump in a cold plunge, meditate, do some breath work, journal, exercise, and then, run to your office. Like, of course, if you do that, you're going to feel great. But
Mm.
if that's so far off from where you are today, hard to maintain consistency on that. But if you figure out and equip your toolkit with things that like, okay, I know that works well for me, then to your point, I think then you evolve it and add things in and play around and whatnot, right?
You raise a very good point. And I spoke about this yesterday when I was accepting my 3-year medallion, is that the change in me has been incremental. It's a little
Mm.
bit day in, day out. But that waking up at 5 and going and training and stuff like that, that's very extreme for people. But nothing happens overnight. And it's
Yeah.
very, very small changes that happen over a long period of time. My routine that I have today is very different than it was 3 years ago. And the routine I have today, I wanted after 1 day or 1 week 3 years ago. But I
Yeah.
have to try and fail and try and fail and see what works and see what doesn't work and develop the habits and routines and changes that I have now over a long period of time. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see where I'm at in 3 more years from now and in 10 years from now, right? But I was very much an instant gratification kind of guy where it's like, okay, I put in the work. Now I want to see immediate results. And I have to
Yeah.
practice patience and realize that it doesn't always happen that way. So that's a great
Yeah.
point that you raised
Yeah.
there.
I like that. What you said, I find interesting given what I know about, becoming a chef obviously is limited. But I see a huge parallel from my understanding that to become a chef, I mean, you're being guided and you're shadowing and following other chefs that have done it before you, which is essentially what you gravitated towards in terms of 12 step and finding the importance around, oh, they've gone through this, they've had the success or the results, and now I'm, they're essentially my mentor, which I think is so valuable for any of us in any situation.
I'm so fortunate. I agree with you. I'm so fortunate. I've had incredible people around me for my entire lifetime. I just chose to block out or ignore some of them at different parts of my life.
Yeah.
When I went clean and sober, uh, the hardest thing was losing my friends, losing my circle, losing the people that would enable me, that would give me a safe space
Mm,
to behave the way that I wanted to behave at that time, right? And I had to love them from a distance, man. It's not like I deleted their
yeah.
number. I had to love them from a distance. And a lot of the
Yeah.
people that I told you that I was ignoring and blocking out, I became closer to those people. And you know
Okay.
what? A lot of those people are the people that wouldn't put up with my shit,
Interesting.
why I ignored them in the first place. But very much like I shadow a sponsor or I shadowed chefs and other people throughout the years, um, it all comes down to auditing my circle. We are the company we keep, so we must be prudent in the friends we seek, right? I realized that more than ever. And I had a lot of people around me that weren't serving me over the years, right? And now I keep my circle very close knit. Although I have quite a few friends and I'm very social and I'm always doing something different, I know who the ride or dies are and I know who the people are that I want to keep close to me. They're the people that will not take my shit.
Yeah.
They're the people that'll push me to always be better, and they're the people that will always support me no matter what. Right?
Mm. I'd love to ask you, I want to get into the book, Mad
Yeah,
Love,
mad
and
love.
Mad Love, beautiful title as well. I love everything about it. I've had a few chefs now over the years on the show, but it's the first time that it's timed with an actual cookbook and book to hold in my hands. So I'm super pumped about this and the timing of it all. The first question though I have that's kind of just coming up now based on what you've shared is is around the fact that you've had a lot of success, obviously straight out of culinary school with everything you've talked about, but you were in a very different place, obviously. And now, you know, you've evolved to where you're at today, 3 years
Mm.
sober, you've got this toolkit, you're, doing a lot of work and so forth on yourself and whatnot. And have this new project, which, is this book. Like, how is it different? Because a book, and we talked about this before recording. I mean, you're going through a reprint already, which like this
Yeah.
is freshly
Same.
published. So, congrats on that for one thing. It's great success, but I'd love to know, like, does it feel different in this current version of Devon? And
You
what
know,
is that?
you know what's interesting is like, and you said the key word feel, right? Because that's where I was going to go. Is that a question I get asked so often surrounding my recovery is how do you feel? And
Mm.
my answer is always the same. It's like I feel.
Yeah, exactly.
I,
I didn't
I,
feel
I,
before.
I feel everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's that cut and dry. It's I feel everything. Um,
Yeah.
Me being able to get my act together and practice all the things that we mentioned, the self love and being honest and all these things that I mentioned before, doing for others, all these things that I've worked on over the years, they made that cookbook happen. Because in the past, like I said before, I was a functioning addict. I was a very high performer, high achiever, workhorse kind of guy. I mean, I was still only hitting like, I don't know, just throw a number out there, like 70, 80, 90%, and
Sure.
now everything that I do, and I was saying this on another podcast last week or something, on another interview rather, is that like, I'm very proud of the fact that I can give everything 105%. And I gave that
Mm.
110%. So it feels amazing to see how it turned out and the reception. I mean, like number one in three categories on Amazon Canada.
Mm.
Globe Mail had it as the fourth highest selling cookbook.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. Yeah, yeah, like Jamie Oliver at number seven. You know what I mean? Like, was this real life?
Yeah.
You, done interviews with Forbes and House and Home did a four-page feature in the May issue. Elle, National Post, CBC Life, Globe and Mail came to my house to film one of the to shoot one of the recipes. Like it just keeps rolling, man, and I can't believe it. The support has been overwhelming. I have pop-ups planned, 10 across July throughout Florida and New York. I mean, I
When does
filed.
it publish in the US? Is
It
it
was
out
May.
right now?
It was like a week ago, May 23rd or May 20th.
Okay.
Or Turks and Caicos, and I got the message that it's out. Yeah. So like, I'm just very grateful, and I am now inspired to work harder than I was before, which is
Yeah.
hard to believe a little bit because like I get winded every now and then, with these 7 days and stuff like that. But it's also like, Mark, I'm working for myself. This is
Yeah.
my this is my brand to build,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Before, like no one's firing me.
Yeah.
This is really all on me. But the feeling is immense gratitude. I have amazing people around me. I have a team that works around me that puts so much effort into everything that we do, and I try to reciprocate, and I try to work as hard as I can to match that and show them that I'm as committed as they are to it. But it's a wonderful feeling. The other great feeling is I don't have a restaurant.
Mm.
First question my entire career I get asked is, what restaurant do you work at?
Yeah.
Or when are you opening a restaurant? That's not my story, you know?
Sure.
It's not my story. And I've
Did you
operated.
struggle with that?
Well, yes, it's a huge problem for me because I've owned and operated restaurants in the past, but I'm living a bit of a dream. I work my ass off, but my goal and my dream has always been to travel. And I'm
Yeah.
traveling. I've been away more this year than I've actually been in Toronto, you
Okay.
know? And I'm doing pop-ups abroad, book signings. I just launched a new menu at a five-star in Turks and Caicos. I added 17 menus to 17 dishes to the menu, and I have and I'm cooking on Carnival cruise ships and cooking for a wedding in Mexico, and I'm off to Portugal to cook for like I'm doing all these things and I love it. And thank God I'm single with no kids.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, like this is the dream. And for me to tie myself up to a bricks and mortar with rising food costs and
I feel
shitty
like that would kill you. I mean, I don't know you that well, but I feel like that's just not like I could see how that'd be a problem. Like
Yeah, but
you'd get
running a
bored.
restaurant, you pull your hair out. I mean, yes, I have a big following, and yes, if I gave it 100%, I know I could do well. But I don't want to spend 120 hours a week in there. And bro, I'll share this with you. I will never ever say this guy's name. He's someone that I look up to and respect. He owns a bunch of restaurants abroad, about five, and he's starting to downsize them. And he called me. He's like, "Hey man, are you up? I need advice." And I'm like, "What do you need advice from me for?"
Mhm.
Right? I look up to you. I want to come to you for advice. And he's asking to find out more about what I'm doing because the
Okay.
restaurant industry is killing him. And he's so talented and he's wildly
Yeah.
successful in my eyes. But the restaurants are struggling. And
Yeah.
and it's just I have friends that come and put a hand on my shoulder and they say, Devin, please promise me you'll never open a restaurant. Like that are restaurant owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people want to be doing what I'm doing, but public perception is that you're a chef, you have a restaurant. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
it's
with the
so
older
true.
older community, right? So that's not my story. So long kind of tangent that I went on there, but this cookbook now allows people to like bring a piece of Devon home,
Yeah,
and connected to me, and they're connected to my food, and it's doing more than a restaurant could ever do for me,
yeah,
because all around the world this book is shipping, and people are able to cook my food in their own home and bring loved ones around the table and enjoy with them as well.
yeah. I love it. I mean, what strikes me is it's like I like your language around like it's not my story, and because that doesn't mean that someone else's story who owns a restaurant, is not the right path for them, and like that's what lights them up, right? It's not everyone, of course, but it's just I think it's getting taking. I've heard you say this before, and we really resonate on or align on this language, but just being still enough in your mind to
Yeah.
know what that path is, right? Or like what is at least the direction of my story, and like let's let it unfold. And it's so beautiful to hear. Like I love that the book is titled Mad Love, because I was getting a bit teary-eyed actually when you're describing the gratitude, because I could feel that landing in your heart. Like your heart feels like it's erupting with gratitude for this book and what it's been
Yeah.
doing and whatnot, right? Which is which is a chapter in your overall story. It's not the whole thing, but it's definitely a pretty big, part of your journey, and
Can I
super exciting.
can I tell
Yeah.
you about Mad Love?
Yeah, please.
I always get asked like, what does it mean and stuff like that, right? Um, as I mentioned earlier, when I returned from those 4 months of traveling in 2019 to 2020, and I started Chef Dev at home. I'm not sure if I said in the first video. I think I did, but like I put out hundreds of videos, right? But I just started saying at the end of the video, I would just put up a peace sign and say "Mad Love."
Oh,
It-
okay.
yeah, that's where it came from. And I'm a guy. I speak with a lot of slang, and I love to have fun with languages, especially English. But I speak French and a bunch of other languages and stuff like that, and I just love having fun with words and stuff like that. So I'll say, oh my god, mad hungry, right? This is mad cheese in it. Like it's just one of those things that I say. So mad love made sense, and slowly but surely, over months and over the years, the past couple of years, I've been. I started to become synonymous with Mad Love. So
Okay.
I decided to build a brand around it, and now we have merch. And last year, I went to open a restaurant in Pakistan for my friends who open in Lahore, and I love Pakistan so much. It was my second time there, but um, they threw the mad. I didn't know they were doing this, but when I was coming, they created a whole Mad Love menu, and this is the Mad Love brand coming.
Oh,
And then yeah, because prior to that, it was just really in the videos. I don't even know if I had the merchandise out yet at that point. I might have, but it really just helped fortify this path that I was on and really build around Mad Love. And I mean, there's still so much more to it. The world needs more love.
oh yeah.
The world
Yeah.
needs so much more love than ever. Love, anyone buys my cookbook and makes that food, there's no love in the ingredients. Like you individually have to do that. And the food will never taste better than when you're cooking with that intention and the
Yeah.
person can be enjoying it, even if it's yourself, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that's really so that mad love. It's like it just made sense. And I kind of fought with the publisher a bit to get the name. They're like, we don't know about this name. They gave me a whole list of names to
Of
choose from.
course. Yeah.
They're like, nah, none of these really fit, and I can't see this working. And they're like, mad love. People may not understand it, this and that, and all the doubts that we had. Like, oh man, I fought for my face on the cover from a
Okay.
representation standpoint. Because
Okay.
a lot of cookbooks, Mark, especially if the author's not really well known. I'm very well known in Toronto and Canada, but not necessarily in other parts of the world, right?
Yeah.
So the fight to get myself on the cover and all these doubts that we had prior, the book is just performing so goddamn well
Yeah.
that no one even mentions these things
Yeah.
anymore. So
Well,
another
good
thing,
for
another
you
more
for
thing to be
sticking to
grateful
your
for.
intuition and your values. Like it's again, having gone through not a cookbook, but obviously
Yeah,
with
your
my
own
book,
book.
yeah, with Personal Socrates, it's the publishing world's an interesting place. It's I'm grateful to it and the distribution and all of that, but it's also there's some tough conversations and tough decisions. And you like anything though, I think like the higher kind of moral of the story is like you've got to fight for what you believe in. And
Mm.
like you said this earlier in the conversation, like no one's gonna do it but you. And like go for it, you know?
And it goes back to what you were mentioning about the stillness, like the
Yeah.
mental clarity that I had. It put me in a
Yeah.
position to listen to people that I should have listened to, including myself. Whereas
Mm,
before, the decisions prior to having that mental clarity, the decisions may have been skewed in one direction or another, or I may have
sure.
did things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by me having that clarity, I was able to pull the trigger on certain things that ended up benefiting me.
Yeah. It's a real superpower. I really I think because it's all there for us. It's just the vast majority of the population, and I hope this starts to change, and through conversations like this, I think it's helpful, is that there's just so much in our minds, there's so much mental debt, so much mental clutter that, for those who have that superpower around these practices and these tools and so forth, it's like you can see and feel what others can't. I mean, that's just, and it's there. It's just, it's like you can blow out a lot of that clutter and like, oh, well, there's the path, like, or that intuitive nudge is coming out. That's pretty clear that I need to follow that, for example, right? It's, it's there. We need to find our, like, I like your language, your spiritual toolkit and figure out what that looks for
Yeah,
you. Yeah. Yeah.
it's what works for me. I didn't have one before, right? I had nothing before. My spiritual toolkit before was just substance, bro.
Yeah.
So I dealt with everything. And you mentioned it as well. You're like, that scotch at the end of a night, happy or sad?
Yeah.
Like, I use substance for everything, for
Yeah.
every reaction. Happy, sad, bored. It's 21 degrees outside on a Wednesday or what. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what. I just used it for life. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So now I have that toolkit and I don't have to resort to that, right? And I've learned over the years to um, engage in healthier habits, right?
Sure.
Even picking up the phone and talking to someone, or the travel, or reading, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the gym is colossal, man. The gym and squash. I play a lot of squash. I play a lot of racket sports,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Squash is intense. That's
And
that's probably the thing outside of boxing. I'd say they're almost equal. Like the physical workout and how you feel after playing an intense round of squash,
they're both
like
about
in
800
between my
calories.
ribs hurt. It's like
They're both about 800 calories an hour, man.
okay, yeah,
It's incredible. I love it so much. And funny enough, like I mentioned, getting clean, going to treatment in 2014. I didn't mention that I had like 10 months sobriety at that time, but that's when I started playing squash. It was like 2015. And I just fell so in love with it, and I was playing like every other day, which is terrible on the body. Um, but it's something that to this day I look forward to so much, and you feel so good after. You feel so
yeah,
productive, and you have all these endorphins, and you just sweat like a bucket.
yeah,
Sweat. I mean, I
yeah.
just love it.
That's a healthy addiction, I think.
Yeah, and
Right?
and in my fitness journey today, where it's at, it's not where it was 3 years ago. When I went clean in 2021, I already had like a pretty unhealthy, I would say not terribly unhealthy, but I wouldn't say I had a great relationship with food. And it really spiraled out of control, man, because I was substituting.
Mhm.
So I wasn't picking up drugs or alcohol. I was eating nonstop. And I put on a lot
Okay.
of weight, and my knees were swelling up. I had to learn to get that in order. And again, this goes back to the incremental changes. Like I had
Yeah.
to try what worked and what didn't work. And, little things happen over a period of time, but you just have to stay committed to the cause and wanting to
Yeah.
be the best version of yourself at the end of it all, or as much as you can. And like, yeah, I lost like over 45 pounds or so.
Wow.
Yeah, I got real heavy, man. And like, cause man, I just wanted to be numb all the time.
Yeah.
I'd have a
Yeah.
huge breakfast and then I'd just be grazing chips, donuts, grazing, two dinners, grazing. And then, so I was always in this state of bloatedness,
Yeah.
and I didn't feel comfortable in my own head, which is why I used something to get out of it. Right. And I just went from what I was doing before to food. So it's like I always have to be mindful of that kind of stuff. But for anybody out there who's wanting to start on the fitness journey, it starts with day one, and don't
Mhm.
expect the world. These things take weeks, months, years. Like just stick
Yeah.
with it, do what you can do and chip away. I think with social media now, we just want to get huge, or we want to get real cut, or we want that six pack. And like,
Yeah.
trust me, it's not happen overnight.
Yeah. No, I just be honest with ourselves and kind to ourselves, right? And just kind of point ourselves in the right direction. And like we know for the most part, the things that we need to do is just start small and hold ourselves accountable and ideally have someone else as well to hold you accountable kind of we obviously touched on that topic, and just keep going, right? Keep going.
That's it, man. One day at a time.
Yeah. Uh, last thing I do want to ask you about though, just back to the book, like what outside of obviously, consuming and creating beautiful dishes through the recipes that you've got here. I also love the I forget what you called it, but the the playlist that you injected in, or was it like Power Play or
Spotify.
uh what's that? Pump Up the
Spotify.
Jam. That.
Yo, oh yeah, Pump Up the
Yeah, yeah,
Jam.
Pump Up
Yeah,
the
the
Jam. But
title.
yeah, the playlist, like just like now that I know you a little bit better, like I'm not surprised. Like it's just full. It's you've made a physical object like fully immersive from color and energy to like throw on the jams. It's so awesome, man. I really hope you're taking in the self love for that. The question, because I'm rambling here, what's the undertone within the book that like how do you want people to feel when they experience Mad Love?
I want
Outside
them.
of obviously the beautiful dishes.
There's a few things that I want to happen. Okay. One of them is that I want people to be very inspired. I want them
Mm,
to be inspired by the energy in that book, the colors, the exotic ingredients that are in there. The second thing is I want people to feel confident enough to step outside of their comfort zone. If you are at home cooking, and let's say you have a family and you're eating the same thing week in, week out, because it's safe. You can do it quickly. The
yeah.
only way you're going to bring some excitement is by trying new things, trying new ingredients, trying new recipes. And this cookbook has a ton of them, right? Even if you're Guyanese or Trinidadian or Caribbean, West Indian or Indian, of which mostly that book is East and West Indian, right? Even if you are, you're going to still learn mad new shit in this book, bro.
There it
Because I've
is.
done some things that have never been done before. For example, balak paneer is a famous paneer cheese and spinach stew curry that's
Okay.
very popular in South Asia. And then we have spanakopita, which is spinach and feta in phyllo, very popular in Greece, right? In
Yeah.
Greece. So I merged the two together. You
Mm,
know, this doesn't exist anywhere. I make balak paneer or sag paneer. I make that and I reduce it down because, of course, if we're making a spinach filling for the spanakopita, we need to drain out excess liquid. So I reduce it down in the pan, but it's got the onion, the ginger garlic, the chili, all the spices, etc. And when it cools down, I hammer it with feta and dill, and then I add that into the phyllo with butter and bake it. Right. So, I mean, it's insane. Your head just explodes, but it's spinach and cheese and spinach and cheese. These things make sense in my head. Right. So even if you come from these backgrounds, there's still going to be a lot in the book that you haven't seen before. So I mentioned three things, right? Inspiration, stepping outside of your comfort zone. The third thing that I want this book to do is I want it to connect the younger generation to the older generation. Every year that goes by, I have people reaching out to me saying things like, Chef Dev, my dad was Guyanese and he passed away when I was young. And I have no way of connecting or no way of finding out how to cook or where to get the food
mm,
I grew up eating in my house, right? And
yeah.
more and more time goes on, the more the younger generation, especially the people living abroad outside of Guyana, outside of India, even, you get more and more disconnected as the grandparents go on, move on, as parents move on, as the elders move on, naturally, of course this book will connect you back to the roots. There's
Mm,
cookbooks and metemji and pepper pot and all these classic Guyanese dishes are in there. Some of them are kept fairly traditional. Some of them have spins on them. But at the end of the day, it's sharing with everybody a deep lens into my life. This is my POV
yeah.
on how I grew up, what inspires me, and how I remain inspired, and why am I so passionate about food? Like it's all in that book. You
Yeah.
pick up that book and learn a lot about me, especially with the playlist. Speaking of the playlist, another thing I fought for. I think
Oh,
the
really? Like
stop
to me, it was like that's genius.
bro. A lot of people like the amount of people that are like, bro, the playlist like is the best idea ever, and I think the publisher thought that by putting out these playlists that it would push away the younger audience. I think
Okay.
because there's a
Okay.
lot of 90s hip hop, the whole 80s rock and roll section, stuff like that. But I've had great feedback from younger kids as well. But I think that's
Yeah.
what the publisher gave us a little bit of a hard time. But still, not
Well,
with
I mean, at least maybe you made this argument, but the other thing, like they're QR codes. You can update those playlists at any point, right? Like that's the other thing. And they can always be relevant, right? They could be modern stuff, older stuff, whatever. But it's just like if I think of things that have just literally formed and kept our culture together, music is huge. Our food and traditions and passing down recipes and being in community and eating together. Like I love how you ended that last one around connection. I'm
Mm,
not saying anything that we don't know, but like we're in a pretty rough spot around loneliness, especially with the younger generation. So
mm.
just just infusing as much as we can into the world and society to go out and cook together and share a meal and laughs. Like it's just all the good stuff, right? So,
Yeah,
man, it's powerful.
I want the book to put a smile on people's faces. And I get countless messages from people being like, "This is the best Mother's Day gift I could ever ask for." And people telling me like counting on the days, putting countdown timers on when the book's arriving. I mean, I just want to spread the mad love, man.
Yeah, mad love. What a way to end. What a way to end. Well, I mean, obviously, I feel like you probably have the same sentiment. We could go for another hour easily,
Easy, bro.
easily. But I want to respect your time. Make sure that you hit that gym workout, and
Yeah,
I'm just grateful for your time and coming on the show, but a higher thank you and level of gratitude to you putting in the work, man, because the ripple effect of you doing that for yourself is, the book is one thing, but your energy, everything that you're putting out there, the pop-ups, the, connecting so many people and cultures and experiences like that, you can't even measure that. Like that's the ripple effect and the power of what you're putting out in this world, and it's all good stuff. So thank you for that.
man. I gotta say thank you. No one's ever really positioned it that way before. Yes, of course, we know that to look after everyone else, you have to look after yourself. I use the airplane analogy a lot.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
gymnastics you do so well, so you got to look after this first. And I only understand that now in recent years, but no one's ever really said about that ripple effect. And I think one of the reasons why it stands out to me so much is I always thought I had a ripple effect because I was always very high performing and always doing community stuff and volunteering or whatever it was. But it's pure. It's from a pure place now, and the dial has definitely been cranked. So you just blew my mind a little bit at the end there, and kind of attached me to the present moment, right?
Mm.
So I'm really grateful to you for that and everything. I mean, I'd love to have another conversation with you, man. Like
Oh
this,
yeah.
we got
Oh
to
yeah.
hang
This is just
on
the
closed
beginning.
doors.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure. To be continued.
my bad.